Reverend Dave Messner did the Dave Messner thing and got in contact with Ann Clough, and I'm honored that she could make it. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a community of people, I don't have a script here today, bound not by the traditions we believe, but the values we share, and our mission to heal the world. I think that's how it goes. Whether you just stepped into church for the first time or for the 1,000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. No matter your race or who you love or how much money you do or don't have, you are welcome here. Wow. I do have an announcement. Coffee hour, social hour will be a little different today. Our Global Studies Committee has put together kind of a forum, and this I think will be an ongoing thing intermittently for a roundtable. Today's subject will be, what do you know about Project 2025 and Agenda 47? This will be a moderated conversation among First U members and friends. We hope you will stay after this morning's service and participate in the discussion, which will kick off at 11:30. So there may be a moment for a sip of coffee, and then hopefully everyone will join in on the discussion. At this time, please join me in reading our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. I will turn it over to Marianne for the prelude. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ann Clough. I use she, her pronouns, and it is an honor to be the third choice to lead worship this morning. I will bring us into worship with these words from the Reverend Lindsay Bates. Come, let us worship together. Let us open our minds to the challenge of reason, open our hearts to the healing of love, Open our lives to the calling of conscience. Open our souls to the comfort of joy. Astonished by the miracle of life, grateful for the gift of fellowship, confident in the power of a living faith, we are here gathered. Come, let us worship together. I invite you now to rise in body and or spirit and join in number 346 in the gray hymnal, Come Sing a Song with Me. I'd like to invite those young and to come up for a time for all ages. Good morning, everyone. So how many of you have ever gone to a fair or a festival and spent the whole day outside? So it's fun. And what else? Maybe you get kind of tired, get sticky, crowded. That's right. Sometimes you're hungry because the lines for food are really long, right? So yesterday I went to a festival and it was a lot of fun. I was having a great time. However, thank you so much. However, all of a sudden, I was listening to the music, and it was a wonderful song. It was a song from Moana, and all of a sudden, I started to cry. Because, kind of, okay. I started to cry because I was really So what do you think I did? I did go home. Yes, I went home and I took a shower and went to sleep. And you know why I did that? Also because I wanted to be able to come back and be with all of you this morning. If we don't take time by ourselves, rest and renew and recharge, eat, sleep, drink, then we can't come and do the other fun things we want to do. So part of what we think we want is to actually not to stop, to rest, to take care of ourselves, our bodies, our mind, our spirit, in between time, right? Does that sound right to you? Yes. When after you take a nap, do you always feel better? Yeah. Yes? Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes grown-ups need to be reminded that naps are important for us too. All right, thank you so much for coming and listening to my story.
At this time, I invite you to warmly greet your neighbors. Seriously. So this is our time in the service where we do our joys and sorrows. two naughty ones are sitting down. If there are any, we won't do a handheld mic, but if you have 30 seconds of a joy or sorrow you'd like to share, I do invite you to come up to the lectern. I will go first, though. I do have a joy. A good friend of mine who I've known for 35 years, who I haven't seen in several decades. He moved out to LA shortly before I moved to Florida and then here. And we talk pretty often. And he texted me, and he called me. And he said, what are you doing on Sunday? I said, well, same things I always do, go to church, come home, watch something on TV that's sports related. He said, I'm going to be in Chicago this weekend. Let's get together and have dinner. He's at some conference shooting the photography there. So I'm pretty excited. See my dear good friend Giovanni. Is there anyone that has a joy or sorrow that they would like to share? Natasha Walker.
Hello. So I have, it's over now, but my sister was in the hospital 2 weeks ago. She's younger than me, and she had blood clots in her lungs. It was very scary. And it was just a great reminder to me around how specifically women and people of color have to advocate in the medical system for themselves, and that it can have life and death consequences. So just as a reminder, it was a sorrow for me. It's gotten better, but just something to think about as you're, taking care of yourself.
All right. So for all the joys and sorrows spoken or not spoken, we hold you all in our thoughts. Now at this time, we will collect our offering. Every week we do so for the good work of this church and the good work that we do and perform in the community. So at this time, the offering will now be received with gratitude.
As I shared with the children, it is important to rest. So let's take a moment just to ground and center ourselves today. I invite you to get comfortable in your seat. You might want to close your eyes. In the midst of the whirling day, in the hectic rush to be doing, in the frantic pace of life, pause here for a moment. Catch your breath, relax your body, loosen your grip on life. Consider that our lives are always unfinished business. Imagine that the picture of our being is never complete. Allow your life to be a work in progress. Do not hurry to mold the masterpiece. Do not rush to finish the picture. Do not be impatient to complete the drawing. From beckoning birth to dawning death, we are in process, and always there is more to be done. Do not let the incompleteness weigh on your spirit. Do not despair that imperfection marks your every day. Do not fear that we are still in the making. Instead, let us be grateful that the world is still to be created. Let us give thanks that we can be more than we are. Let us celebrate the power of the incomplete. For life is always unfinished business. Blessed be. Our reading this morning is from retired UU minister, the Reverend Dr. Richard S. Gilbert, who also authored that meditation. He writes, I rise in the morning torn between the desire to save the world and to savor it, to serve life or to enjoy it, to savor the sweet taste of my own joy or share the bitter cup of my neighbor, to celebrate life with exuberant step or struggle for the life of the heavy laden. What am I to do with guilt at my bounty when it clouds the sky of my vision? When the glow which lights my everyday illumines the hurting world around me? To savor the world or to save it. God of justice, if such there be, take from me the burden of my question. Let me praise my plenitude without limit. Let me cast from my eyes all troubled folk. No, you will not let me be. You will not stop my ears to the cries of the hurt and the hungry. You will not close my eyes to the sight of the afflicted. What is that you say? To save, one must serve. To savor, one must save. The one will not stand without the other. Forgive me. My preoccupation with self, in my concern for my own life, in these I have forgotten. Forgive me, God of justice. Forgive me and make me whole. When I was in my 20s, I briefly considered becoming a nun. I had known since I was a young girl that I had a calling to ministry, and I was unsure how to fulfill it. I hadn't yet discovered Unitarian Universalism. I was living in Milwaukee and attending Marquette University, which is run by the Jesuits. And it was my first time that I had been out on my own, and I was feeling overwhelmed. I longed for the simplicity that a religious community seemed to offer. I wanted remove from chaos, retreat from drama. I craved the companionship of others who all shared my values. The vision of life in the Abbey that I held in my mind was idyllic and peaceful and predictable. At that time, I was leading the high school religious education class at my church with another woman who had been a Franciscan sister but had left the order a few years prior. And when I asked her why she had chosen to leave, she told me the story in detail, which is not mine to share with you this morning, but I remember how she concluded her tale. She said, "When you join, you think you are leaving one world and entering a new one, set apart from conflict and status seeking, but the truth is, the community is still made up of people. People with egos and agendas and their own ideas of how things should be. There's still politics. You can't escape that unless you become a hermit. And even then, you have to interact with people sometimes, or else you won't eat." She also suggested that most of us are a bit too extroverted to have a monastic vocation. And she encouraged me to continue to seek my path in the world. And I have, but I still vacillate between the desire to be a part of everything and that calm center that I feel when I am connected to the spirit of life in meditation or contemplation. So these last few years have thrown this tension into sharp relief. Our politics have become so ugly and divisive that I regularly want to go on vacation and not come back. I don't want to have to debate or persuade, and a significant part of me desires to be alone, or at the very least, only with others who think and believe like I do. This imagined alternative seductively promises real, deep rest and social interactions that are consistently loving and reciprocal. And yet, when my family was in quarantine together, even with each other's and our collective best interests at heart, being cloistered in our home for months on end was real work. It required the ongoing renegotiation of our family covenant. And we still got on each other's last nerve way more often than I would like to admit. And conversely, we felt isolated and withdrawn from the larger society in a way that demonstrated why humans organize ourselves into larger groups all over the planet. It seems that for all the work it entails, we kind of need each other. Father Thomas Merton did choose in his 20s to become a monk. He entered a Trappist abbey in Kentucky in 1942, just as America was entering World War II. And so by the beginning of the 1970s, having lived in the monastery for nearly 30 years, he found himself grappling with the value of living in a community set apart from the larger world. The The civil rights movement was ongoing. It's still ongoing. There was the war in Vietnam. The Catholic Church was living into the challenges of reforms that came out of the Second Vatican Council, which were intended to update the church to be relevant to the modern era while still being true to its theology, trying to do their version of the living church. So was there still a place in the world for communities whose sole role was to retreat into contemplation, rest, and prayer? In his book, Contemplation in a World of Action, Merton writes, "This is simply the voice of a self-questioning human person who, like all his brothers, struggles to cope with the turbulent, mysterious, demanding, exciting, frustrating, confused existence in which almost nothing is predictable, in which most definitions, explanations, and justifications become incredible before they are even uttered, in which people suffer together and are sometimes utterly beautiful, at other times impossibly pathetic, in which there is much that is frightening, in which almost everything public is patently phony, in which there is at the same time an immense ground of personal authenticity that is right there, so obvious that no one can talk about it, and most cannot even believe that it's there." Merton's description of a world in social upheaval rings as true for our time as it did for his. He goes on to note that these contradictions aren't just in the world, they are internal to his personality. I would add they are within all of us. Artist and author Jenny Odell echoes this assessment. In her 2019 book, How to Do Nothing, which I highly recommend, Odell speaks of the impossibility of retreat. She points to early American utopian experiments, as well as the communes of the 1960s, as examples of people attempting to escape from society only to discover, in fact, that they had brought them with them. Even Henry David Thoreau, our celebrated Unitarian spiritual ancestor, during his extended retreat at Walden Pond, still went into town every few weeks for provisions and to have his mother do his laundry. Both Merton and Odell argue that there is value in spending time apart so that we can regulate our nervous systems and then from our calm center, determine how to participate when we return to the larger community. Merton and Odell also both name this as a privilege. To have the time and space to step outside the chaos and oppression of daily life is not to be squandered. In fact, our responsibility to our fellow humans and the more than human life on our planet is one of the greatest forces luring us back into the fray. Merton puts it this way: if I had no choice about the age in which I was to live, I nevertheless have a choice about the attitude I take and about the way and the extent of my participation in its ongoing events. In our time in history, making this choice is particularly challenging because of our media environment. The 24-hour news cycle sensationalizes every event, and social media capitalizes on our anger and despair. The competition for our attention is nonstop unless we intentionally unplug. We have to step away from the cacophony of the online analysis and hot takes and give ourselves the opportunity to hear our own inner wisdom, to connect to spirit, and to hear our own inner voice, still and small. It is in that pause where we regain our capacity to choose which parts of society we will participate in and which we will refuse. Here is how Odell describes it. We absolutely require distance and time to be able to see the mechanisms that we thoughtlessly submit to. Some hybrid reaction is needed. We have to be able to do both, to contemplate and participate, to leave and always come back where we are needed. Standing apart represents the moment in which that desperate desire to leave forever matures into a commitment to live in permanent refusal where one already is, and to meet others in the common space of that refusal. This, then, is the role of spiritual community. Although some may be called to the monastic life, for most of us, the congregation is the place of pause, of connection, and of renewal. Here we can get support for both our personal spiritual practice and for our discernment about what role we are to play in bringing justice, peace, and compassion to the world. Leadership consultant Margaret Wheatley encourages us to make our spiritual communities islands of sanity. It is here that we can share with one another the meaning we are making from our world and our experiences in it. From a place of humility and curiosity, we can offer each other comfort and, when necessary, challenge. We can hold each other in accountability and love. Here we acknowledge that we are a part of the interconnected web of all existence, inextricably bound to one another. Within that web, we each have the right to flourish in our inherent dignity and worthiness. And we are each responsible for our role in collectively building the environment in which that is possible. Odell and Merton encourage us to make that conscious choice, not just about what we will do, but what we will not. Standing apart gives us a clear view of what aspects of the society are life-giving and which deplete life and love. Our islands of sanity, our spiritual communities of shared values and mutual care give us the strength to refuse to contribute to the ongoing oppression of our fellow humans and the destruction of the environment. These refusals can take place on every level. We might refuse to participate in gossip. We can refuse to ignore microaggressions. Perhaps we refuse to participate in excess consumerism at the expense of sweatshop labor. We can disagree without contributing to rhetoric that dehumanizes those on the other side. It is each of us taking time apart to quiet our minds that allows us to show up with integrity, to make those deep connections where the sacred is found. And we make this place holy by showing up for one another, We empower each other to stand apart. We refuse to contribute to the hatred and bitterness of our world. Here we practice love in all its forms: empathy, compassion, sympathy. And we expand our capacity for the active love of caring and reciprocal relationship. Here we renew and prepare so we can live with that same integrity in the wider world, so that we can find joy and beauty that is to be had there without being swept up in fear and despair. Together we resist, and together we thrive. May it be so. I invite you once again to rise in body and or spirit and join in hymn 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. By way of closing, and as we extinguish our chalice, I offer these words from the Reverend Sam Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity. Find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness and peace and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. My spiritual companions, go in peace. Amen.